Hi, I'm Bill Crum from News OK and the Oklahoman. I'm speaking today with Sandino Thompson. He's the Executive Director of the It's My Community initiative, and It's My Community focuses intently on workforce development among other areas here in the city. Laura Massinat is a member of the Oklahoma City Public Schools School Board, and she's a partner in the Elemental Coffee business, which is from what Sandino was just saying, a great place to grab a quick lunch here in downtown Oklahoma City. We're going to talk today about maps for neighborhoods. The MAPS 3, the 1 cent sales tax for MAPS 3 expires at the end of 2017. And there's been discussion really around town for a couple of years now about maps, extending maps, what the next map should look like. And maps for neighborhoods has become I don't know if I want to say a buzzword or not, but it's certainly something that you're hearing around the city. The presentation that was done at last week's City Council, Sandino, Jonathan Dodson came. He spoke about Boston and how Boston has innovated, how Boston has valued diversity and complexity, how it's attracted people and not companies, and it is invested, he said, in education and social capital, and it's revitalized itself. When we were talking a little while ago before we came in, we talked about creating communities for people.
Yeah, I think, so yeah, I've actually gotten a chance over the past few months to get to know Jonathan very well, and Kamal Pennington, who's another contemporary of mine from Ward 7, also came and spoke, and we've just really thought that this is a good opportunity to start thinking about what we do next, where the direction of the city goes. So we've had really good, fortunate experience the past, well, really decades now. Good leadership, I think, good sense of community, but we think that a lot of what the city's gonna look for and how it's gonna thrive in the 21st century is gonna be about people, and it's gonna be about not just the places that we build, but also how we connect people to the places and how we fill those places with activity, with amenity, with the kinds of things that really drive kind of a people-centered community. I mean, Oklahoma is a people-centered place. This place was created. Oklahoma City was literally created overnight. So it's never been about the place, I think, for those of us who are really connected here, but it's really about the people. That's what keeps us coming back. So we think, like the idea of a MAPS 4, that kind of initiative, I think it should be for neighborhoods and should be something that's people-driven, people-centered. So it's not about the buildings, maybe it's not about the cars and that kind of thing, but really about the people, how we really show others, showcase what this town's about, and encourage them to come or want to come here or to have a different viewpoint of it, but also folks like myself who were born and raised here, grew up here, was educated here, but saw the opportunities that the world presented. I went out, had the opportunity to engage with that, but then after seeing what was happening in my own community, really wanted to come back, and I've been engaged with everybody that I met along the way, other Oklahomans, other folks raised in Oklahoma City, about how we get back connected, how we take advantage of this opportunity and this time to really invest in ourselves and our community. So we think MAPS for Neighbors is a good opportunity to kind of take that to the next step.
Okay, Laura, MAPS has, over the years, and now it's been about 22 years, I think, since 1993 when MAPS began, has been about investments, a lot of them in brick and mortar. The canal, the ballpark, we're building a park, talking about getting the convention center built downtown. What sort of investments might we see when we do MAPS for neighborhoods?
MAPS for neighborhoods would be around connecting people in their communities, about connecting them to their schools. Specifically, that's kind of my area of interest, getting the kids and the families to get there on bicycles and on foot more easily, removing those barriers, connecting people to their community in that way. Yeah, it's really about making a better life for people who live here rather than trying to draw more people here to our city.
Well, one of the things that I was reading earlier today on my Twitter feed, somebody talked about streets used to be, until not very long ago, for people and not for cars.
Yes.
Is there an element here of reclaiming neighborhoods for children to play in the front yard?
Absolutely.
For folks to be able to stroll up and down the street safely?
That's a huge piece. It's life changing. You know, a person who can't step out of their house and run safely in their neighborhood, get on their bicycle and, you know, head downtown safely, is at a very big disadvantage. You know, health wise, that's a big struggle. It should be easy for everyone in this city to step out the door and get moving
and feel safe in their neighborhoods.
And feel safe.
We mentioned the MAPS 3 sales tax expires at the end of 2017. Has anybody thought this through to the depth of thinking how long MAPS 4 should last, or how much should be invested in, and how much should be invested specifically in neighborhoods versus downtown, the river, other parts of town?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll say briefly, because Laura might have more thoughts about it, but I think it's the group that we've kind of engaged with is just a group of citizens and other folks from around Oklahoma City who are just interested in what kind of life looks like. So I don't know that we've thought that in depth. I'm sure others have. But I think it's really that progression. So we did the first maps, and that was kind of our shot, you know, to dream big and think about what life could look like. So we've got a lot of capital improvements, a lot of focus on the urban core out of that effort, and I think it's spilled over all over the place, and people consider that a success. We did maps for kids, and that was, I think, also a very forward-thinking and great initiative. We created
success and a great platform for us to now go forward as a district and take care of the people who are in those
So
buildings.
we created all this structure. We've created a lot of infrastructure.
We created a lot of space within which relationships can be built.
Yeah. So what do we do now, right? What do we do next? We created. I mean, it definitely in my neck of the woods. So the maps for kids, the renovations and improvements in new buildings, they're some of the nicest buildings in the neighborhoods. But as we were talking about before, sometimes we don't have sidewalks to those neighborhoods or to those schools. I mean, so you have kids having to walk through the streets and that kind of thing just to get to the schools. But then thinking about that next step to connecting, you know, schools and community centers and that kind of thing, how we invest in that and make sure that when you were asking about kind of the funding and the numbers, I don't know about the numbers, but I know we would like to see, you know, trails, the systems, those kinds of investments, the walking trails, pedestrian trails, bike trails, those kind of things be a more comprehensive part of what it looks like to connect, you know, the community assets in a neighborhood, but also to connect one neighborhood to the next, you know. So we have the Near East, I just, you know, on the other side of 235 from downtown, and then not so far from Health Science Center and other areas. So what would it look like to have, you know, trails and maybe non-vehicular ways of connecting people to those areas? We've got, you know, golf courses, we've got parks and all kinds of things, but they're all kind of in their different places.
They exist somewhat in isolation.
Right. How do we bring those things together?
Yeah, the same conversations are happening all over the city, you know, on the grassroots level, but also at the city level. You know, they have a comprehensive sidewalk plan that they've only been able to just begin, and so to complete that sidewalk plan would be a wonderful first step. And the pedestrian and cycle master plan is being revised, and so to be able to complete those things that have been, you know, put to, you know, have been started would be a great first step. The numbers that we have kind of been hearing are that we might, if we took about half of the maps to go into the neighborhoods, and we would love for that to be the first thing that happens with MAPS dollars, we are thinking around 500 million going straight into the neighborhoods, and then the additional 500 million going into the more traditional facilities kinds of projects.
Into other projects.
Yes.
We've talked a lot about connectivity. Culture is also one of the things. There's three, actually: connectivity, culture, and health. Where are we with culture, and how can MAPS help foster? I think we've gotten into it a little bit, relationships, a culture of diversity, a culture of complex relationships, among all the people of the city.
What we can see as the city's coming up is that little pockets of culture are happening already, and districts are, birthing themselves and becoming a place with a certain culture that you want to go to. And some, budding districts that could use a little help would be a great place to put some MAPS dollars, help push Capitol Hill a little, and they're moving in that direction. Help them get there. Let's find a great space in Northeast Oklahoma City where we can help them build their culture and build little districts that they identify with and that they will claim as their own.
Along the lines of, I know downtown, for instance, because I read about downtown all the time if I'm a citizen listening to this interview today. Plaza District, Paseo District, there's places where I can go experience this.
Right. Let's spread that out into other parts of the city. Absolutely.
Okay. Well, and getting back, because I just have, this is what got me really excited to start with. The connectivity thing is something we see every day, because I grew up where parents would send you out and it's like, don't come home till the sun goes down, and we'd find friends along the way, we'd walk, we'd go all over the place, right? And you don't see a lot of that happening as much. So there's that sense of that people-centered community piece, but this idea of culture, I think, and what's springing up, seems like so far it's been, come hell or high water, if you will, we have pushed to see the things manifest themselves. Paseo's been around for a long time. Uptown was a classic sort of shopping district, from the very early starts of the city. But we've seen people just really kind of take hold. So we know that it can happen. And so again, in the Northeast side, the areas I'm most familiar with, there is a lot of culture that you see there. I grew up in a part of town in the green pastures in Dungy Park, far east, where we still ride horses down the street, and there's a tradition of within the black community of all these, what's maybe considered non-traditional things now, but it exists. But because over the history of the city, there have been times when that particular community has been a little bit more disinvested. I think for us, it's just figuring out how we can connect. So there are a lot of folks looking Martin Luther King, 23rd Street, 36th Street, even 10th Street these days in those areas. So how can we connect to the Renaissance? We're very excited to see what's going on, and very excited to be a part of what's taking place. How can we connect? We have a community asset that kind of got started in, I think, the original maps, actually. It's part of the original Trails Master Plan. It's the Katy Trail in that area. And it connects, actually, the Adventure Zone, the zoo, and Remington Park and the Science Museum, all the way to Bricktown. But the section that goes through that part of town has been closed almost since the project was completed. So for us, thinking about the funding and the resources, just how can we bring the community together around that as an asset? And us really just kind of take some ownership and think about, those maybe non-traditional, atypical things we can do to sort of show that culture. How can we get those assets back online?
Am I right that there could be some investment in lower JFK and JFK to get people from Bricktown through what is now a transitional area and on out, Health Center, Adventure District?
That connection.
Yeah. And so we're excited about that, because we think it's an opportunity to get people to look at that part of town a little bit differently. And I think when you start talking about connectivity, you talk about the culture, you talk about the health, we want to create a 21st century experience for what it's like to be in Oklahoma City. And we want to sort of be a part of that conversation. We want people to think about, these districts or areas on the Northeast side as well. And but we also think, as just on the nuts and bolts of economic development and the drivers, we need more density in the urban core. We need to encourage those pedestrian modes. So we want to see that happen. We have a lot of positive things taking place. So maps for neighborhoods really gives people that oomph, that extra motivation. So we've been just doing it. It's going to happen. So to see something like a Maps for Neighborhoods come around it just adds another layer of opportunity to see those things through.
Community centers, places where you can engage in parks, where ties into health. Transit ties into health. You walk to the bus, or you walk to the light rail, or you walk to the streetcar, for instance, instead of getting in your car in your driveway. And then you can get where you're going. Are those all components of health? The third of our three here: connectivity, culture, and health.
Absolutely, those are all components. How you get where you're going has a big impact on your lifestyle and on your health. There have been studies that show that the way kids get to school is actually more impactful on their education than what they eat in the morning before they go to school.
Really, how's that?
Get there. That getting there actively, either on foot or on a bicycle, they arrive ready to learn, more alert, and they actually learn and retain more. And that's true for adults too. Mm-hmm. You learn more right after you exercise. Mm-hmm. So, really important piece.
Yeah, I'll second that. I rode a bicycle to work for many years, and I did okay.
Yeah.
I think.
It's also true that people will do what's most convenient, what's made most convenient for them. So as long as we have, schools where it's very difficult to walk or cycle there, but it's very easy to drive through in your car and drop your child off, that's the behavior that we're promoting. And it also keeps the parents from connecting with each other and from creating a community around that school. So those are important in a lot of ways.
I sense something of a potential generational shift here. MAPS has been in existence for 22 years now. And those who conceived of the idea are the elders of the city to some extent. Mm-hmm. Is there an opportunity here to pass the baton to a new generation?
I think that's a great way to look at it, right?
It is.
Their work has been so wonderful. Yeah. We couldn't even be talking about what we're talking about if they hadn't done what they have done. But yeah, it might be time to let younger than me. Yeah.
Well, I remember. So I have the benefit. I remember as a child, I was kind of a budding photographer, and so we'd go to warehouse districts, go to Bricktown when it was just the haunted house, spaghetti warehouse, a few places like that. And I took pictures of the place and that kind of thing. Just thought it was a really cool place, right? Mm-hmm. And so then, fast forward. This is early '90s, late '80s. So then fast forward to see what it's become as this destination, that kind of thing. I mean, not only is it inspiring? I mean, it's part of what really motivated me to stay invested, is seeing those kinds of changes being possible. But it also changes your perspective for what you think is possible, right? So I think there are a lot of us who grew up in this environment, seeing those things, who really feel like that's what Oklahoma's about. Like, you talk about culture. There's a lot of conversation about, Dallas has this thing, and last week I was in Houston and they got this. Well, we don't want to be Dallas. We don't want to be Houston. We take inspiration from places like Boston, but also Kansas City and Austin, Fort Worth, some other places. But we're going to be Oklahoma. So I think even in the culture conversation, it's like, how do we bring up that culture that's here? And so when you start talking about that generational pass or passing, if you will, there might be something to that, because I think there are definitely a lot of us who grew up seeing that, and we just feel like, it's our responsibility maybe almost to just see this thing through and do what's next, because I want to be able to look around and see a diverse group of peers and colleagues and others, and us really be proud, be able to sort of beat our chest about what we have here, and it really be a place for the future, not just for what happened before, or what happened in the past. Yeah.
Well, certainly I think there's a danger that it might slip away if a new generation does not at some point grab it and run with it, right?
Mm-hmm. I mean, it could get bigger than ever. This is a group of people coming, into civic activity who have never known an Oklahoma City that wasn't growing, where everything wasn't possible. They don't even remember what Bricktown was before. They didn't see it, and so what they see is, we can change it, we can do it, we can, and that change is possible, and it's happening, and I think they believe it and they want to be a part of it.
Well, nothing like believing in change. My name is Bill Crum. I'm here with you for News OK and the Oklahoman. I've been with Sandino Thompson today and Laura Massonet. We've been talking about MAPS, and specifically about MAPS for neighborhoods. The idea that the next MAPS program that would continue after the current 1-cent MAPS sales tax expires in 2017 would focus on neighborhoods, would focus on relationships, would focus on connectivity, health, and culture. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.